I was looking at my laptop this morning, just kind of staring at it,
Hmm.
and I had this really intrusive sort of weird thought. I was thinking about the silicon chips inside, processing information, retrieving memory, all of it.
Right.
And I wondered if I swapped out every single neuron in my brain one by one with a silicon chip that did the exact same thing,
Yeah.
at what point do I stop being me?
Wow.
Or do I?
You're diving right into the deep end of the ship of Theseus paradox, but with a cyberpunk twist.
It's the kind of question that keeps you up at night, because
Uh,
we just assume mind and brain are the same thing. No brain, no mind.
of course.
But today, we're looking at a source that basically says, not necessarily. We're doing a deep dive into a chapter by the philosopher Tennyson Samraj.
And the title is The Multiple Realization of Intentionality as an Emergent Property.
It's a bit of a mouthful.
It is a dense title, I'll give you that. But don't let the academic phrasing scare you off. This is one of those pieces of writing that it takes a crowbar to your basic assumptions about reality.
How so?
Samraj is effectively arguing that consciousness isn't tied to our specific biology, and once you accept his premises, you logically, or at least philosophically, open the door to AI consciousness, truly alien life.
And even God in the afterlife, which is what really got me.
Exactly.
That is a massive spread. We're going from how do I think to is there a God in one straight line. So I guess the mission here is to see if that line actually holds up.
Right. We need to unpack two main concepts.
Yeah.
Emergence.
And this tongue twister, multiple realization.
If we can grasp those two, the rest of the universe sort of unlocks.
Okay, let's start with the basics then. Emergence. I feel like this word gets thrown around a lot, usually to explain things people don't really understand.
Like a magic word.
Yeah, is this just a fancy way of saying, and then a miracle happens?
Not at all. In fact, it's the opposite of magic. It's all about structure. In philosophy, emergence describes a situation where you put simple parts together,
Okay.
and they create a whole place that has properties the parts themselves just do not have.
The classic example is always water, right?
Right. But let's look at why that example is so important. You have hydrogen and oxygen. Neither of them is wet. They're gases.
Right.
You can study a single H2O molecule for 1,000 years. You'll never find wetness. You won't find liquidity.
Yeah.
But you put enough of them together.
And you get an ocean.
Exactly. Liquidity is an emergent property. It's real, but it doesn't exist at the level of the parts.
Okay, so applying that to us, my individual neurons aren't thinking.
No. A single neuron doesn't have a favorite color.
Right.
It doesn't know your grandmother's name. It just fires electrical signals.
That's all it does.
But when you network 86 billion of them together, consciousness emerges. The mind is to the brain what wetness is to water. This is what the paper calls emergent materialism.
So, Samraj is setting the stage. The mind is real, but it's built out of physical stuff. It's not a ghost in the machine.
It's the hum of the machine.
Got it.
But here's the pivot, the really clever part. If wetness is just the result of a certain structure, does it have to be water? Or could other things be liquid?
I mean, sure, mercury's liquid, oil is liquid.
And that brings us to the second, and much more important, tool in Samraj's kit, multiple realization.
Okay.
This is an idea from philosophers like Hilary Putnam. And it really pushes back against the idea that you need specific hardware to get a specific result.
So multiple realization is just a fancy way of saying there's more than one way to skin a cat. Or in this case, more than one way to build a mind.
Essentially, yes. The standard argument goes like this. Think about pain.
Okay.
You're a mammal. If you step on a Lego, your C fibers fire, your brain processes it, you feel pain. Now, consider an octopus.
Which is, evolutionarily, it's practically an alien.
It really is. It's a mollusk. Its brain is distributed. Most of its neurons are in its arms. It is fundamentally biologically different from us.
Sure.
But if you hurt an octopus, does it feel pain?
I think the consensus is yes. It guards the wound. It acts like it's in pain.
So the mental state of pain is multiply realized. It's running on your mammalian hardware, and it's running on the octopus's mollusk hardware.
Even though the hardware is completely different.
The structure is different, the chemistry is different, but the emergent property is the same.
Okay, so this implies that a carbon-based brain like ours is a sufficient condition for a mind. It works, but it might not be a necessary condition.
That's it. That is the wedge Samraj uses to crack open the entire argument.
Yeah.
If biology isn't the only way to run the software of mind, then What about non-biology?
What about silicon?
What about silicon?
This is where we get into the tech. The paper makes a specific point about the periodic table, doesn't it?
It does. Samraj points out that silicon sits right below carbon. They're
Yeah.
in the same family, chemically. They share similar bonding properties.
Which is why sci-fi has been obsessed with silicon-based life for decades.
Right. Like the Horta in Star Trek.
The rock monster, yeah.
The Horta is a great example because it challenges our bias. The crew first treats it like a monster because it looks like a rock. It doesn't squish. But it has intent. It protects its young.
But that's fiction. Let's talk about real-world AI. This is where I get a little skeptical. My laptop can calculate pi to 1 billion places, a mental function, but it doesn't know what pi is.
Right. It's just syntax, not semantics.
Exactly. It's just crunching numbers.
And you've hit on the crucial distinction. Samraj focuses on a very specific term, intentionality.
Okay, unpack that, because in normal conversation, intentionality just means I meant to do something.
In philosophy, it's deeper. It's the aboutness of a thought. If you think about Paris, your thought is directed at Paris. Your mind can represent something outside of itself. The question is, can a computer do that?
This is Searle's Chinese room argument, isn't it? You can follow instructions to translate Chinese without actually knowing a word of Chinese.
That's the classic objection.
Yeah.
But Samraj uses multiple realization to counter it. He asks, if we accept that memory, a mental function, can be realized in silicon,
Which it can,
and calculation, a mental function, can be realized in silicon,
obviously.
and even decision-making is now being realized in, say, autonomous vehicles.
Yeah.
Why do we draw this arbitrary line at intentionality?
Because it just feels
So different.
the other stuff is just math.
But is it? If pain can emerge from an octopus arm just as well as from a human spine, why can't aboutness emerge from a complex enough silicon network?
You're saying we might just be biased.
Samraj suggests we're guilty of carbon chauvinism. We assume that because we haven't seen silicon create meaning yet, it can't. But if emergence is a real principle, maybe we just need a complex enough system.
So, we're back to the water analogy.
Right.
One silicon chip isn't conscious.
But put 1 trillion of them together in the right way.
Yeah.
And you might just get the wetness of intentionality. We're already seeing AIs that create art that seem to grasp context. We might be seeing the very beginning of this.
That is both exciting and terrifying. But let's zoom out from Earth for a second. If minds can be built from different stuff, that completely changes how we should be looking for aliens.
Drastically. For the longest time, astrobiology was basically hunting for Earth 2.0. We were looking for oxygen, liquid water.
Because that's the only sample size we have.
Exactly. But if multiple realization holds, the laws of physics and chemistry are universal. Emergence is a universal principle. So if minds can emerge from different substrates,
We shouldn't be looking for space humans.
we should be looking for what the source calls snowflakes, minds that are distinct like snowflakes. They might not be carbon-based, they could be gaseous or crystalline.
Wow.
But if they have that core trait of intentionality, if they can think about the universe, they are minds.
It makes the universe feel a lot more crowded and frankly a lot stranger. It means we could be staring at a conscious entity in a nebula and not even recognize it.
And that brings us to the biggest leap in the paper. We've done AI, we've done rock monsters, now we have to talk about God.
This was the part that surprised me. You usually have science and philosophy over here and theology way over there.
They don't often mix.
But Samraj uses multiple realization to build a logical framework for God.
It sounds like a contradiction, right?
Yeah.
But follow the logic. If you're a strict materialist, if you believe mind equals brain,
Yeah,
then the idea of God is just nonsense.
right.
God doesn't have a body, no neurons.
Right. No hardware, no software.
But what have we just established with the octopus and the AI?
That the specific hardware doesn't matter.
Exactly. Multiple realization removes that physical barrier. If a mind can run on meat, and it can maybe run on silicon, and it can run on who knows what in some distant galaxy,
Then it becomes logically possible to conceive of a mind that runs on no material at all.
or a substrate of pure energy, or something we can't even imagine, God becomes the ultimate example of a mind without a brain.
He calls it the infinite mind versus our finite minds.
Yes, and he brings back that concept of intentionality.
Yeah.
If we finite minds have aboutness, the ability to think about the world, Samraj argues that this property had to come from somewhere. He posits a supreme intentionality.
So he uses modern philosophy of mind to kind of patch a hole in ancient theology.
That's a great way to put it. He's not trying to prove God exists with an experiment. He's saying that the biggest scientific objection, the lack of a physical brain, is dissolved by the principle of multiple realization.
It's fascinating. He's saying, look, science itself has proven that mind is substrate independent, so you can't use lack of a body as your argument against God anymore.
Exactly. The nature of mind allows for an infinite mind just as much as it allows for an artificial mind.
Okay, so we've covered the infinite mind, but what about my very finite mind? The paper pivots to the afterlife, which is where this gets personal for everyone.
It's the ultimate question of continuity. If the mind is software, what happens when the hardware crashes?
The screen goes black. Game over.
That's the standard biological view. But look at religious models through this lens. Take the Christian concept of resurrection. It's often described as getting a new body.
So, in our terms, that's a server migration. The mind program gets moved to new hardware.
Essentially. Or look at Hinduism and reincarnation. The Atman, the self, moves from one biological vessel to another.
That is literally the definition of multiple realization. The software is portable.
Samraj is pointing out that these religious ideas, which can sound mystical, are actually describing a process that is philosophically coherent under this framework.
But for me, this brings up the Star Trek transporter problem. If you beam me up, you take my atoms apart and reassemble them. Is the new guy me? Or just a copy who thinks he's me?
And this is where Samraj, to his credit, pumps the brakes. He admits this is the problem of identity preservation.
Because if you made a perfect clone of me, he'd remember everything I do. He'd feel like he's me. But I'm still over here. If I die, I don't suddenly wake up in his head.
That's the fear. We can explain how the functions transfer. Memory, personality, habits, that's all just data. But subjectivity, the internal pilot light,
The actual feeling of being you.
that's the hard problem of consciousness.
And the paper distinguishes this from intentionality.
Very sharply. Intentionality is detectable. I could ask a robot, what is this? It can say an apple, it has aboutness.
Yeah.
But subjectivity, that's private.
The text references Thomas Nagel's famous essay here.
What is it like to be a bat?
Right.
Nagel's point was you could know every physical fact about a bat, how its sonar works, its neural pathways, everything. But you will never, ever know what it feels like to be a bat.
Because that feeling isn't in the wiring diagram. It's in the experience itself.
Exactly. And this is where multiple realization sort of hits a wall. We can argue that aliens or AI can act conscious, that they have intentionality, but we can't prove that there's a feeling inside any of them.
Which is kind of haunting. We could build a perfect AI that laughs and debates philosophy, and it might just be dark inside. All calculation.
Or, conversely, the Horta, that rock monster, might be experiencing a rich inner life, and we just see a pile of silicon.
So where does that leave us? We've gone from octopuses to AI to the afterlife. What's the final takeaway from Samraj's work?
I think the takeaway is a kind of intellectual humility and curiosity.
Yes, so...
Well, we spent centuries thinking we were the center of the universe physically. Then we learned we orbit the sun.
Right.
But we still act like we're the center of the universe mentally. That mind has to look like us.
Carbon chauvinism.
Exactly. This paper dismantles that. It says mind might just be a property of the universe, not just a property of big brain primates on one small planet.
So the universe goes from being lonely and empty to, a crowded waiting
A
room.
very strange waiting room. And there's one final really provocative thought Samraj leaves us with.
Oh, the silent universe idea. I marked that down. It's a little trippy.
It is, but it's grounded in basic physics.
Yeah.
Think about sound. Sound is just pressure waves in the air. It isn't noise until it hits an eardrum and a brain translates it.
And color is just wavelengths of light. It isn't red until a brain decodes that wavelength.
Exactly. So without minds to perceive it, the universe is silent and colorless. It has no qualities. It's just math and energy.
So if Samraj is right, and there are all these different minds scattered across the cosmos, aliens, AI, maybe even God, they aren't just living in the universe.
They're the ones painting it. They're the ones turning the lights on. Without these diverse minds to perceive it, the universe might exist, but it wouldn't mean anything.
That is a hell of a thought. We aren't just observers, we're the projectors.
In a very real sense, yes.
Well, I'm definitely going to look at my Roomba with a lot more suspicion now, and maybe a little more respect.
Just don't ask it if it has a soul. You might not like the answer.
Fair enough. Thanks for diving in with us. This has been a trick. We'll catch you on the next deep dive.